Welcome in to the Late Night Gamecock Show. I'm your host, Matt Anderson, and joining me, as always, is Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. So, Alex, I was going to start this by saying it's tough to be a Gamecock fan right now. It feels like recruiting miss after miss after miss, and there was a lot of conflicting information about Kamari Blair. I see that you have titled this episode, Kamari Blair Commits. So that's the big news. Gamecocks picked up a commitment from composite four-star offensive tackle Kamari Blair, 6'5", 6'6", 275, 285 pounds. You look at the table, there was an Ole Miss hat, I believe, a Tennessee hat, and a South Carolina hat. So again, this is the Gamecocks going up against other SEC teams, some blue bloods mixed in there. And Alex, just your overall take on the commitment and the player.
Yeah, just a really nice win for South Carolina on the recruiting trail. A guy that they've been kind of battling for ever since they offered in January, I think. And I think he came in for that official visit one of those first weekends, and South Carolina really kind of knocked out the park with him. And I think kind of the key we're all talking about with him would be just kind of surviving that Ole Miss and really that Tennessee official visit. And South Carolina was able to, and that was one that. It's not easy to pull a Tennessee recruit out of Tennessee. And Tennessee was really going after Kamari Blair, and really nice win for South Carolina. A guy that we'll dive into a little bit more here after we roll the intro and all that. But a guy that's got, I think, really high upside, really intriguing film, great size, a 4-star offensive lineman. And so now we'll kind of they got handful of offensive linemen come in this class, and now you get Kamari Blair, and now all eyes kind of turn to the 5-star.
Yeah, it's so funny, Alex, and we'll have a conversation about this on the show eventually, but South Carolina just continues to rack in high upside, highly ranked offensive linemen, and it's starting to pile up for a number of years now. And even the 3-stars that they take, if it's a composite 3-star, it's still a player with projectable upside. And as John Strickland says, who played the position at South Carolina and played it well, ideally you want to redshirt your freshman year as an offensive lineman. And, days of instant gratification are where we live right now. But John, and I've talked to him about this, even off of shows, just, having conversations with him, and he mentions all the time, look, ideally you don't want to play as the offensive lineman until your third year. And if you're good enough to go pro after 3 years, then good on you. But most people are going to need those 4 to 5 years of body development and growth and figuring out the schemes and what to do with their hands. What do I do with my hands? Well, you got to do something with them. So Gamecocks continue to pile on offensive line commitments. This is a big one for a number of reasons. And as I said in the opening, it's tough to be a Gamecock. Coming into today, Alex, it was like, what's going to happen with Rashawn Faison? How are the Gamecocks going to rebound after all these recruiting misses? Oh my gosh, here come more announcements where the Gamecocks are in the top 3. What in the world is going to happen? Are the Gamecocks going to get blindsided, or are the Gamecock fans going to get blindsided, I should say? I think the coaches are pretty aware of these situations, and in some cases are hopeful. But outside of that, the hand-wringing can hopefully stop here for a little bit. Tomorrow's the big day with the Wingo kid, a 4-star wide receiver committing. Looks like it's down to South Carolina, Miami, and Florida. We'll talk about that. And then Friday's the big day for Landon Duckworth, 4-star, top 50 kid in the country, top 6 quarterback in the country, formerly committed to South Carolina, decommitted. And it looks like the Gamecocks are in a strong position to get him back in the fold. A couple quick hitters here, Alex. I do want to mention off the top, we're not going to talk a lot of baseball, but shout out to Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall, and Eli Jerzenbeck and Matthew Becker for getting drafted in the Major League Baseball draft this past weekend. And then 2 high school kids that were committed to South Carolina, Noah Franklin and Luke Rope, are going to sign. That's pretty much formality. Pulmonary confirmed about the Luke situation earlier today. So happy for all, 6 of those young men. Happy that, they had the opportunity to go play for a school like University of South Carolina, whether they played and put on the garnet of black or didn't. They're going to go make some money and try their hand at professional baseball. Other things we're going to hit on the show, we're going to talk about SEC Media Days. Alex was in Atlanta. He was there for Shane Beamer, Lenore Sellers, and Nick Barrett and DQ Smith. I'm sure he's going to have some nuggets for us from that. Then we're going to preview the Vanderbilt and Missouri games this year. Really just talk about those teams. We like to talk about each Gamecock SEC opponent on the show in the summer. So we're going to hit on Vanderbilt and Missouri. And since it's ranking season and you're seeing all the preseason polls come out, all the preseason conference projected standings and who are the best players in the country, Alex and I at the end of the show are going to take our crack at that. We're going to talk about our top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC this upcoming year. So Alex, we have a special treat. We're going to go ahead and show you guys the new video for our introduction, and we'll be right back with the show.
Gonna turn on the late night show, hear what's going down in Cooltown. I said I'm turning on late night show. Yeah, my cots will let me down.
So that was fun, Alex.
Yeah. I think we've had that old intro since maybe like a year. I think it's been a year since it's a new one. And that one, I say that one's pretty good.
Yeah, it really sets the tone and the mood for late night. And all credit, Alex and I did not make that. JC Sherbert made that. And JC sent it to me. He's like, what do you think? And I just, I used some choice language. I was like, it is really awesome. It is really cool. And so I'm really excited for that. It's a lot of fun. But Alex did say something in the chat. We have a little private chat that we can talk on. And he laughs at how I pronounce Rasul Faison. He said, I pronounce it differently every single time. Until Todd Ellis says it on the radio, I'm not going to know the correct pronunciation, Alex.
It just makes it. I was trying not to laugh the first time you said it before, and I had to just cover my mouth. But we'll get there.
Do you know how to say it?
Rasul Faison.
Rasul Faison. Faison.
There you go. There.
Faison. Okay. Well, look, there's been some information that's come to light over the past couple hours, looking promising for the Gamecocks, but not out of the woods yet, and not out of the woods for Rasul. So we'll see what happens there. We're hoping to have some information public in the next couple of days. We'd love to have it before the end of the week. And I know that the Gamecock coaching staff and Rasul would like that as well. But Alex, as we kind of mosey through the show tonight, you were at SEC Media Days. Just overall reaction. Was that how many times have you been now?
So that was my second time going. I went 2 years ago, I think, to Atlanta. Same place, College Football Hall of Fame in the Omni, and Hale and I went Monday? Yeah. And I think just some of the things that stood out were, it's, a lot of times with these types of media day things, you don't get too much from, when Shane Beamer goes up on the main podium. A lot of times you can get a lot of good stuff from, guys like DQ Smith and Nick Barrett and Lenora Sellers when they're maybe off podium, or maybe you can get them, maybe not with cameras all around them. And, I thought, I put this on the site last night. One of the, I guess, biggest things that stood out to me were DQ Smith and Nick Barrett talking about, Sean Murphy being a guy that's standing out to him. And that linebacker room is one thing that, I think we're all kind of wonder, obviously lost a lot of experience in that room, a lot of really good players in Debo Williams, Demetrius Knight, and Bam Martin Scott, guys that played a lot of football. Debo and Bam had been in Clayton White's system for a while. Now you got a Fred Johnson and a Justin Okoronkwo and Sean Murphy and Jerron Willis in there now in that linebacker room along with the freshmen. And I think it was a really good sign for the linebacker room to have a guy like Sean Murphy who, has played some football at both Alabama and Florida State. He missed a little bit of time. I would say probably a majority of Florida State season last year with an all-season injury, but really kind of played well in those last 4 games for Florida State and had really nice stats. I think 13 tackles, maybe tackle and a half for a loss. So a guy that can bring some experience to that room, along with what Fred Johnson was able to pick up last year, and then Justin Okoronkwo, what he's able to pick up at Alabama. But thought that was, a pretty key thing. And then, kind of just, obviously Lenoris was really kind of a popular, guy at that. I mean, he had cameras and reporters all around him, but you kind of just feel, not just from him, but really DQ Smith, Nick Barrett, and Shane Beer, kind of the confidence they have. And I think that's something that, speaks to what they think they can be able to do this year.
Yeah, I was able to catch what I could. I didn't watch any of it live. I was working, but I did catch some stuff on YouTube, and in the evening, mowing the grass and all that kind of stuff. I did think it was interesting, they asked Lenore Sellers, and you get all kinds of crazy questions at SEC Media Days. I mean, someone should write a book and just put it in a bathroom and say crazy questions I heard at SEC Media Days, and you could fill a 1,000-page book there where you could hear the same questions asked every year in different years. But I thought it was interesting. They asked Lenore Sellers about the decision to stay at South Carolina, and he said it really wasn't much of a decision for me.
Yeah.
An hour and 5 minutes down the road. I thought it was interesting. He didn't mention at all his brother coming to play at South Carolina as a reason, why. I think that he's such a level-headed kid, and it's one of those things where, okay, well, yeah, my brother's coming here. I'm going to be here. Let's just dot some I's and cross some T's. And the fact that Lenoris is doing some internships over the summer is pretty cool. I know that Lenoris just recently bought a house, so he's doing good things with this NIL money. But it seemed like he got a lot of hype. And then I love the question that Nick Barrett got of, inside the locker room, what did you all think about the money that Lenoris was there? And Nick Barrett gave a very professional answer. I don't worry about other people's money. We don't talk about it. I can tell you, if you don't know this lesson already, I don't care what occupation you have, you never discuss salary. You are paid what the company values you as. And if you want more money, you go talk to the company, all that kind of stuff. But it was just interesting. Like, I liked the fact that they were very blunt and we're about football.
Yeah, I think when Nick Barrett was just kind of, and really everybody, there's Shane Beamer, Lenoris, and DQ is just kind of all about business. It kind of felt like it was just a business-like mentality they had there. And to your point about Lenoris Sellers being asked about the NIL deals and all that, like, I think just kind of get the feeling that he kind of feels, why would I leave South Carolina? I think he kind of has everything he needs. He the fan base loves him. He had a really good season last year. His Mike Shula, who worked really close with him, along with Dowell Loggins, is now his offensive coordinator. So he already has that relationship, and it's his home state. Like, I think he just I think it's one of those where if we all think Lenoris Sellers can have the season that if he has a really good season, he can go make all the money he wants in the NFL. Because you see some of these mock drafts having as a first round pick, maybe even a top 15 pick, and things goes well. So I think he's just happy at South Carolina. And he really kind of, as you mentioned, I was really impressed with not only him but DQ and Nick, because you knew they were going to be asked about it too. But they all just kind of said like, hey, it's not a big deal. Pretty much making it's not a big deal, and none of them make a big deal about it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, too, that Brandon Cisse said that – or no, Brandon Cisse came up as the second fastest guy on the team. That's pretty cool. Nick Harbor and his speed obviously was talked about. They asked Lenoris if he would race Nick, and Lenoris said, I think I'd race him in 40 yards, but not 100 yards. But I think that was actually really interesting for me. For folks that just think that Nick Harbor should be a video game, he's not. And as fast as Lenoris Sellers is, as fast as Brandon Cisse is, as fast as Nick Harbor is, in 40 yards, you're not running straight 40 yards, beating somebody by 3 seconds, and then just standing there waiting for the ball. You have to do different things. Yeah. And I think that, watching this wide receiver room come together is going to be big. When you talk about Shane's comments, and like you said, you really can't take a lot from the coaches here. Lane Kiffin always throws in some Steve Spurrier type barbs, but Shane said that he supports playoff expansion, 2025 goals. Let's improve offense, defense, special teams. Lenoris' development, yeah, he's pretty good. He's doing a good job. There was a lot of stuff that Shane said that was cookie cutter, but did you take anything that meant something more to you, Alex?
I think, just you can't take some away from what he said about special teams, and that's a spot that there are some questions about, just because South Carolina. Shane Beamer talked about it multiple times that I heard him talking about it at media days. Like, they had to replace lot of those key pieces, punter, place kicker, holder. Kai Kirker did both hold and punter. Like, I think there's just a lot of replacement. I think there's still some figuring out how that's going to look when this upcoming season. Like how's everything going to look? Because you got Mason Love, who's coming back for his second year, and does he kind of hold that place kicker and punter jobs? Like, maybe, but you also got a Max Kelly coming in as a true freshman who, I think good, and along with those other guys, return Peyton Argent, William Joyce. It's going to be a battle there. But I think just having to replace all those, and they're still trying to figure it out, and that's going to be a big question in preseason camp, is kind of getting those special teams back to where they were.
Well, and everyone talks about Pete Limbo at South Carolina and the Limbo magic, the Beamer ball, special teams, all of that. But now you have a special teams coordinator in his second year, and maybe some of his imprint's going to come into play here when you have so many new faces and new names. And I think that's going to be really interesting for South Carolina. Player retention is always going to be big. Shane Beamer talks about that, retaining success. I did like the answer that a lot of the folks gave Shane Beamer and the kids, saying that can't rest on last year. Last year means nothing. It's a new season. That was pretty big for me. Yep. But Alex, anything else that stands out to you before we move on to some recruiting?
No, I think we kind of hit on all the really the biggest things that came out of media day. And I think you can kind of just hear, like, not just one thing you get to when South Carolina, or really any team, is going through their day at media days, is what's everybody else saying about South Carolina. And you could hear a lot of hype for obviously Lenore Sellers and what everybody thinks he can be, but you hear it for Dylan Stewart too. And you hear, I've heard a couple of times from people talking about how South Carolina could have the best offensive player in the SEC and the best defensive player in the SEC, and that's pretty interesting to think about. Like, I hadn't, you knew, obviously how good those two are, but I mean, to have that's a really good starting point to have, if that's going to be the case, to have two of the best players on both sides of the ball. And I think it's just really interesting. I think there's a lot of potential. Like, I think some people are going to be interested to watch South Carolina kind of early on to see how everything goes, especially from a defensive side of the ball standpoint, because there's so much to replace right there. But I think South Carolina early on, especially in that Virginia Tech game and through those first few games in the beginning of the season, are going to have a lot of eyes on them.
And Alex, I've said it a few times on this show. I've said it on the other shows that I go on, but it's not often that South Carolina has potentially the best player on offense and the best player on defense in every single game they're going to play this season. It's not a norm. I threw around jokingly a couple of weeks ago that what if South Carolina had back-to-back number one overall picks? It's not far-fetched. It isn't. It's not far-fetched that Lenore Sellers sticks around for another year, and then you have 1 and 2 in the draft. It's not far-fetched. So big time for South Carolina. Moving on to recruiting, I'm going to hit this kind of fast, Alex. We'll talk deep. We'll have a little deeper dive in recruiting. But look, I talked about the hand-wringing that's going on in Gamecock land right now. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not fun to finish second or third for 4-star Pierre Dean to Georgia, 4-star JB Shabazz to Tennessee, 3-star Joel Combe to Tennessee, 4-star Samari Matthews to Texas, high 3-star, sometimes 4-star Tamarian Watkins to Texas A&M, 4-star, high 3-star Desmond Green to Florida, Julian Walker to Michigan. Like, that's not fun. But it's not like you're losing these guys to Clemson. It's not like you're losing these guys to, Florida. I mean, you had lost one, but it's not like it used to be. And I just want to reiterate to the folks out there that, are worried about this. South Carolina is entering an echelon of recruiting that you haven't experienced before. And we talked about it all summer with these official visits. How many 4 and 5 stars were on campus, Alex?
Oh, gosh, like a lot. Like, it was, you go back.
Probably like 20, probably somewhere around 20.
Yeah.
So you had 10%, 10 to 12% of the composite top 247 players on your campus over the summer. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you're not going to win every battle. Nobody wins every battle. I'm going to talk about that more here in a little bit. But the other guys they brought in official visits and missed on were Carter Meadows to Michigan, Kari Adams to Notre Dame, Travis Johnson to Michigan. And we talked about this. You were going to take your swings on these players. And let's not kid ourselves, Alex. Would you have been shocked to see Pierre Dean put on a Gamecock hat when he committed?
No, I would not have been.
Would you have been shocked to see Samari Matthews put on a Gamecock hat?
No.
Tamarian Watkins?
No.
Okay. And Desmond Green?
Yeah, that one kind of been, I think maybe you can see that one coming for a little bit. But, kind of to your point on this, I think we're going to kind of nail this home throughout the most of the night when we talk about recruiting is the class doesn't end in July. They're going to keep recruiting a lot of these guys, and guys always pop up in the summer too. South Carolina's class right now, I think with Kamari Blair now has 11 commits, and 7 or 8 of those guys are 4 stars, and their average rating. I don't have the tab up right now.
I got it, Alex. How about let's talk about this? I want to get your take on this, but okay. I'm right there with you. I'm sorry you're not prepared for this. I didn't send it to you, but you've looked at it enough times that you know. Yeah. So right now, if you look at the average player rating for the class, right, South Carolina sits at 12th in the country with an average player rating of 91.07, right? And they have 0 5-stars, 8 4-stars, and 3 3-stars. Let's just play a random game, Alex. I'm not going to tell you the name of this program. Would you rather have South Carolina's class, or would you rather have this class right here? 12 4-stars, 12 3-stars, 24 total commits.
I don't know. It could be South Carolina's class. It's really good. I'd probably go South Carolina's class.
Okay, well that's Penn State's class.
Okay,
that's Penn State's class right now, and they have an average player rating of 89.16. So the Gamecocks have less 3-stars, and they have 4 less 4-stars. Play another game. Would you rather have South Carolina's class or this class right here? 20 total commits, an average player rating of 91.09, 1 5-star, 12 4-stars, and 7 3-stars.
I mean, that's a pretty good class, but I still think, South Carolina's class, the top end talent right now, really the whole class in general, but the top end talent in that class is really good right now. And I would not be surprised. Obviously, there's, I think we all feel good about, South Carolina potentially landing another 4-star or pretty highly ranked recruit on Friday. I don't know. Still taking South Carolina's class over a lot, I think.
Yeah, and so I just said that was Miami's class. They have 20 commitments. Obviously, I would take Miami's class right now.
Yeah.
Because you got 1 5-star, 12 4-stars. You take that. That's more kids that are 5 and 4 stars than you have committed, right? But if you look at, there are only 16 teams in the country that have an average player rating of at least 90.04. Only 16. South Carolina's 12th. And of these guys that I'm talking about, they average 20 commits each. So what Alex is talking about, saying it's July, is very, very important. It's July. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of time, and you're going to see other folks jump on board.
Think back to this last cycle for South Carolina. They flipped Malik Clark from Florida State. I think that was in October. Think about on signing day, early signing day, December. South Carolina, got Xavier Hardy, the number 1 JUCO prospect in the country, to flip from Mississippi State. Forced a pretty highly coveted 4-star offensive tackle, Demola Edgerton, flipped from Georgia Tech. And Brent Key's a really good head coach, and especially for offensive linemen, he knows what he's looking for in offensive linemen. So to that point, it's just South Carolina can have the season that they have. A lot of the recruiting will take care of itself. And I mean, they've got, I keep saying, the commits they have in this class are really, really good. And you kind of see that in their average ranking right now. Yeah,
you do. And look, there's still recruits that are out there. I have to update my show notes. Kamari Blair has committed to South Carolina. Like I mentioned off the top, that we did not know that was coming. We had a feeling it was South Carolina or Tennessee, but we didn't know until he switched that microphone to his left hand and picked up the South Carolina hat. Alex and I did not know for sure, but you have Samarion Wingo. He commits tomorrow, 4-star wide receiver. You have quarterback Landon Duckworth commits Friday. Alex, I think that all of Gamecock media, all of Gamecock insiders, all of the Big Spur are feeling pretty confident about Landon Duckworth to South Carolina on Friday. Before we get to Wingo, any concerns, any worries there? Are you still feeling okay?
Miami's made a pretty big move.
No, I'm talking about Duckworth.
Oh, Duckworth. Sorry. Yes. Still feel good about Duckworth. And, I think, with him, it's been Auburn and South Carolina for a long time. And, if Auburn's flipped, I think it was a few weeks ago at this point, Auburn flipped 4-star Peyton Malzone from Penn State. So, I think, you have to wonder if that was Auburn kind of seeing that what their chances were with Landon Duckworth. But as we sit here right now on Wednesday at 8:27 p.m., feel pretty good about South Carolina's chances still.
All right, now let's go to Wingo. And guys, I got Koski Barnes and Darius Gray. We're going to talk about them. Don't worry. But Samari and Wingo, I'll tee you up here, Alex. It looked like it was a Florida-South Carolina battle. Looks like Florida will take him, but he's kind of put the ball in Florida's court of saying, well, I'm going to go ahead and commit. Are you ready to take me? And Florida has a running back / wide receiver that's highly rated that they're kind of coveting right now. And Wingo's probably going to make a decision before that kid does. So earlier today, it looked like South Carolina was trending. And then later today, we got some news that Miami has entered the chat room.
Yeah, it for a while now seemed it was going to be a Florida-South Carolina battle for Samori and Wingo. And, I think today really, Miami seems to really build up some momentum in this one. It really got it back in the picture. And, I could see it end up going that way tomorrow, to Miami's way. Like, I think when we talked about Samori and Wingo, kind of he leaned into his official visit and even coming out of it, like kind of talked about how tough it was going to be to get him out of the state of Florida, being that he's from St. Augustine and the two, big in-state schools. One, like it was going to be tough. And, I think Miami's just really kind of surged here in this one. And I think they may end up getting that one.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm leaning at the moment. But like I've said before, Pierre Dean, he switched 8 times before he made his announcement between South Carolina and Georgia. Travian Robertson, good guy, good friend, good coach. Everybody in the world, even he thought he was going to Clemson the morning of his commitment, and he changed his mind. Kamari Blair went down to the wire, and South Carolina got him. But looking at it, Koski Barnes, I think that Gamecocks should probably be favored in his recruitment right now. At least the crystal balls would agree with me, Alex. No date for a decision that I'm aware of, but how do you feel on Barnes?
So let me make sure. I think it's July 26th for him.
Okay.
I'm pulling.
He must have. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, July 26th. Yeah.
Okay, so 10 days.
Yeah, I think was that next Friday at this point. I think with him, like with Koshi Barnes, like he's one that at that 6'3", he kind of just perfectly fits that mold of what they're looking for at that cornerback spot. And I think he's a really good player. You kind of watch his film, you see he plays pretty physical. He's a guy, and also like South Carolina really wants to get into the state of North Carolina. He plays at Grimsley High School. Just I think really kind of an under radar type player. Like you see, like kind of reminds me a little bit of the Christopher Hatfield recruitment from last year. Like kind of really flew under the radar and kind of the same type of prospect, I think. And you kind of see, I think with Koshi Barnes, like he's really kind of emerged on the recruiting scene. Like, Miami was in there, Mississippi State, North Carolina, like a whole bunch of schools really got in there. But I think South Carolina did a really nice job in that recruitment and on that official visit. And, I think right now, they've got a solid chance. And obviously, but we've seen how quickly these things can change. So, but we'll see. I think, they put themselves in a decent spot.
I think so too. And then Brandon asked, how long are we waiting for Darius Gray? I'm going to take this 2 ways, Brandon. Like, are you saying how long will the coaching staff wait on, or how long are Gamecock fans waiting to hear about Darius Gray? To answer the first question, the coaching staff will wait as long as Darius Gray wants to wait. Yeah. He's the number 16 player in the country, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country, from Virginia. Look, he said he wants to play out a season potentially. He wants to take some more time. We've heard conflicting things, and Alex, I'll let you comment on that. But maybe he speeds it up. Maybe he makes a decision. But I think the Gamecocks feel really good about their chances as of July 16th, 2025 at 8:31 p.m.
Yeah, and you start time stamping all this stuff. Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I could see it being a South Carolina LSU battle, but kind of like I talked about with Koshi Barnes just a minute ago. Like, I think they did a really nice job on that official visit, having him in. Like LSU had some momentum. I think maybe in the last few months, but they got him in on that official visit. And South Carolina, I think, has some momentum here. And he said that I think he wants to be sure in his decision. And I said that he maybe wouldn't wait till after the season and after his senior season. So we'll see. But without a doubt, South Carolina's right there in this one.
Yeah, if not number 1, definitely top 2.
And, if South Carolina's able to land a Darius Grant, that's another really good offensive line haul for South Carolina to go on what they've built in the past, obviously getting Kamari Blair. But, Zion Gals is another guy that's highly ranked, across all the industry rankings. And if they're able to get Darius Grant, that's another pretty incredible offensive line haul.
Yeah, I mean, I would put Lonnie Teasley up against any offensive line coach when it comes to recruiting at this point. Absolutely. And just stacking on stacking on stacking. And look, was it a punch in the gut for Gamecock fans the past couple of weeks? Absolutely. I know that I felt really good about a lot of these guys. But is it over with Pierre Dean? No. Is it over with Samari Matthews? No. Is it over with Tamarian Watkins? No. Is it over with Julian Walker? No. So it's not over for any of these kids at all. And South Carolina, they can still get Julian Walker on campus for an official visit. I don't know how beneficial Walker might feel that is after, his dad being an employee. But it's not over for any of those guys. I have talked to some folks that think that all four of these guys could potentially be in the recruiting class when everything is said and done. Really quick, Alex, I do want to talk about this. I know we got to hit a break. I'll get your comments on it too, but just quickly, it seems that a lot of these teams that the Gamecocks are recruiting against, especially teams in Texas, namely Texas and Texas A&M, were able to front load a lot of their NIL money before the deadline passed from Congress and everything went into effect with the $20.5 million, $21 million, whatever number it is, salary cap. And it looks like that they were able to take care of a lot of their current roster with outside funding. And so now when you see Texas and Texas A&M taking 5 stars from Georgia, taking players that are highly coveted from South Carolina, North Carolina, going across the country, you kind of know why. How that's going to impact the long term, I don't know. August 1st is going to be here soon, Alex. And August 1st is this true, real value. I still maintain that whatever someone's willing to pay is their true value. You can't tell me what my market value is. But so that's why a lot of these things have happened. You've seen Georgia whiff. Georgia's got kids taken from their class, and Kirby doesn't lose players he doesn't want to. So, Alex, just thoughts on that and just overall stuff really quick.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be interesting to see kind of how this all looks in a few years, like in the next cycle and maybe in the cycle after that into the future. Like, I'm really interested to see how the recruiting landscape is and all that, just because it has been a really crazy cycle from that standpoint. Like, I mean, you talked about kind of the 5 stars from Georgia that, these Texas schools are able to get. Like, Texas looked J.J. Johnson, who's a 5-star defensive lineman yesterday from Georgia. Like, it's really hard to do. So right now, I think it's just kind of one of those cycles right now with all the things that you mentioned, but really kind of interested to see what the landscape looks like here in the next few years. Yeah,
it's just patience and it's wait and see at this point.
Yeah.
But we're going to hit a sponsor break, and you know what a sponsor break means. It means we're going to talk about, we're going to let D's Wings. We're going to let Mike Morgan talk about D's Wings. Alex, I had wings for lunch today, and they were good, but they weren't D's Wings.
They weren't D's Wings good?
No.
It's hard to beat D's Wings good.
It is. Well, let's hear about D's Wings and their amazing specials, and then we're going to break down Vanderbilt and Missouri.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. When I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Man, Mike Morgan, I'm hungry right now. Alex, have you had dinner yet?
I have not. I got to figure out what I'm going to do after we get off this show.
Well, I know you're probably not going to go to D's Wings because you have to drive there and all that, but I guarantee you that you're going to be ordering Moe's.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid chance that'll be happening, yeah.
Well, I had Moe's on Monday. I love Moe Monday. I have a group of guys we meet there every Monday. But let's move on to Vanderbilt and Missouri. Alex, I'm just going to tee up some bullet points here. Going to rattle them off and then let you fill in any gaps, and then we'll kind of talk about it. Starts with quarterback Diego Pavia and tight end Eli Stowers. I think it might be the best quarterback tight end duo in the SEC. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance that, Pavia, you kind of see what he could do last year, really was the main factor in Vanderbilt being able to do what they were able to do last year. And then Eli Stowers was kind of a guy that was really under the radar going into last season. Now, I think you see him pop up in some, first round mock drafts. And he had, I think it was like just over 630 yards or so last year receiving, was Pavia's main target. And, I'll go ahead as we're on Pavia right now, kind of talk about him. Like, guy that really did it all for Vanderbilt, did through the air 2,293 yards and 20 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. And then he also led the team in rushing with 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. And the one thing I'm interested to watch for there, kind of with that and how this season goes, is like how much do they rely on his legs this year? Because I think you saw it last year. He got a little bit banged up middle to end of the season, and that's kind of when South Carolina got in there, and South Carolina was playing really good football going to Nashville, and you can see like they were, Pavia, he was still pretty good, but South Carolina did a really nice job containing him in that game. But to the point, like I think I'm interested to see how much they rely on a Cedric Alexander, who's going to be their top running back this year. But they did a nice job at really in the portal. I think they wanted to retool their offensive line and went and got one of their top guys that they got was Jordan White, an offensive lineman from Liberty, was really good and graded out pretty well. So really going to be kind of an interesting team just because they did do a pretty good job in player retention. And anytime you have your starting quarterback coming back, that's always helpful.
Yeah, you talk about player retention. They've returned a lot of players from a production standpoint, and then did do a good job in the portal, as you mentioned. I think it's gonna be their best offensive line that they've had, and that's huge for Pavia because you mentioned keeping him healthy. I think it's gonna be a good offensive line, probably the best since Clark Lee's been there. On defense, really they have 2 studs, I think, in linebacker Byron Longwell and safety Randon Fontanetti. Fontanet. So any other defensive players that stand out for you for Vanderbilt right now, Alex?
Yeah, they got, I think their top tackles back, and maybe top 3. Fontanet's one of them. The 2 linebackers, Langston Patterson and Brian Longwell. And, I think, they weren't great at rushing the pass last year, but, Corday Sidnor was a guy that was probably their top guy. And, he and Miles Capers, they had 7 sacks or so. And another guy that would probably be interesting to watch early on in the season will be Zaylen Wood, who, he's a guy that, I think was coming off a season-ending injury, but I think had some, moments there early in the season. And it's going to be interesting to see with Vanderbilt this year because they, from an offensive standpoint, I think kind of brought a new type of system to the SEC that teams had to kind of figure out early on. And it's really where they kind of just drag you into how they want to play, and then they get you into games like you saw in Alabama. They made Alabama play their type of football, and then Vanderbilt in that fourth quarter really just kind of held on to the ball and ran away with it. And I think that's kind of what you see. And I'm interested to see with Vanderbilt this year, how much have teams kind of affected or kind of moved towards that and kind of understand more of what they're doing. But you saw it last year with Pavia, he kind of has just that gamer in him. He kind of just makes the big plays in those big moments, and he's obviously going to be really one of the more fascinating ones to watch because obviously he's, you see how confident he is and what he's bringing to Vanderbilt. But he's got, a really good tight end to throw to in Eli Stowers and Junior Sherrill, their top wide receivers back as well. So, it's just going to be, it's a big year for, Vanderbilt because I think it's an opportunity for them to build on what they're able to do last year. A really good season for Vanderbilt last year and finished off with a Birmingham Bowl win. But it's going to be, kind of fascinating to watch them early on that season, especially because they're going to Virginia Tech in week 2.
Yeah.
And coming to South Carolina the week 3. So there's going to be a lot of, film that South Carolina can kind of watch. And it's just a lot. I think you'll kind of be able to gauge where both teams are at.
I agree with you. I think that Clark Lee calling plays last year really helped the defense. And I think the defense is going to be stingy again. And talking about their offense, they returned 88% of their offensive yards from last season. It's nothing to sneeze at. You mentioned they won their bowl game, and looking at their schedule, you mentioned it, but their should wins, I only see 3 on the schedule. Charleston Southern, Georgia State, and Utah State should be wins for Vanderbilt. So they got to find 3 more somewhere to get to bowl eligibility, whether that's Virginia Tech, whether that's South Carolina, whether that's Kentucky. They play Texas again. They took Texas to the wire. I wouldn't say they really took Texas to the wire. I think Texas was in control, and then the final score looked a little bit better, losing by 3. But, yeah, Alex, I would have bet any amount of money last year that Alabama would beat them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would. Right now, I think their over-under on wins is 4.5. What would you do?
Oh, man.
I'd
take the over.
I do too. But I'm not sure if that's a 5 or getting to bowl eligibility at 6. I'm not.
That's the question.
Know. Yeah, there's just, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, I wonder how much all these other teams are going to kind of adjust to that type of play and realize that you can't just hold on to the ball with the way Vanderbilt holds on to the ball. Like, I'm really interested to see that. And just, I think the big key for Vanderbilt that season is they got to keep Diego Pavia healthy, and it can be difficult for any running quarterback just because of how many hits they're going to take. But it's a really intriguing team just because I think they can get that over. But it's one of those where I wouldn't be surprised if they don't hit that over either.
Yeah, you talk about keeping Pavia healthy. I hope Steven takes this as a compliment, but I see a lot of Steven Garcia and Diego Pavia. I really do. And look, South Carolina might have had the blueprint last year, Alex. The Gamecocks won 28-7. It wasn't a pretty game, but it was a dominating performance by South Carolina. And Pavia took a lot of hits. And you could tell that I don't think he was scared of getting hit. I don't think he's somebody that's scared of taking contact, but it definitely affected him at the end. It's time to give our predictions, Alex. And then, look, don't hold us to these predictions. Teams are going to change. We're going to talk about all these games the week before Wednesday nights. But a couple notes. It is the first SEC home game for South Carolina. The game is going to be under the lights of Williams-Brice Stadium. As we know, at that time of year, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be dark at 7 or 7:45 when that game's going to kick off. But, Alex, I'll give my prediction first. I think the Gamecocks win by 2+ touchdowns. I think this team's just better. I think it's going to be an electric environment, and I think that there's going to be some headhunting going on.
I'll go 27-10.
Okay. So Alex and I agree. Hey, Tiffany, don't worry. You haven't missed the show entirely. We still got some more time left. But you can always go back and rewatch. And we appreciate that because we did talk about a lot off the top. Alex, moving on to Missouri, I think that it really boils down to, they're going to be stingy on defense. You know that going in. But losing Brady Cook at quarterback, losing Luther Burden III at wide receiver, and Theo Weiss and they lost all top 3 wide receivers. I'm blanking on their kid's name right now. So how do they replace that? Well, maybe they're going to be more of a running team. They went and got Ahmad Hardy from University of Louisiana Monroe, led all freshman running backs with over 1,300 yards rushing last season. Probably one of the better running backs in the SEC, despite not playing an SEC game yet in his career. And along the offensive line, they still have Caden Green and they have Connor Tollison. Connor Tollison plays center and Caden Green is the offensive guard. Do you think Missouri on offense is going to go more of a rushing attack and dominate the time of possession?
I can see it just because Bo Perbula, I think I'm saying that right, is he can run. And, we think about back to that game last year, a South Carolina Missouri game, like that zone concept, zone runs gave South Carolina fits that whole game. And that's kind of their bread and butter, what Missouri does really well. And it's going to be really weird to see Missouri without a Brady Cook and Theo Weiss and Luther Burns. It feels like those guys have been there.
Brady Cook's been there since I was in high school. I swear.
Yeah. I think the biggest questions with this team for Missouri is going to be offensively. They got a lot to replace. Those running backs, those receivers. You got Bo Perbula, who's coming in, who's been the backup for Drew Allard for 2 years and has had some time on the field, has a little bit of success, and so you can kind of see what they see in him. But defense, I think they actually got a chance to be pretty good. Like Missouri's had a pretty good defense here these past few years, and They're having to replace Johnny Walker, who was 9.5 sacks guy who's going to play for the Denver Broncos this year. But they also did pretty well in the transfer portal, replacing those guys, especially him. They're bringing in Damon, I think Wilson's his name, from Georgia, was one of the top transfer edge prospects in the country. And so I think with Missouri, the biggest thing is just going to be, how do they replace what they lost on offense? Because that's a ton to replace, especially, not just from a depth standpoint, but from your two deep, a lot of ones are gone. And throw in Armand Membu, who was a top 10 pick in the draft, offensive lineman, a guy that was really good at tackle for him. So I think that's just going to be the kind of question early on. And, maybe if you're South Carolina, maybe it could be a good thing that you're catching them a little bit early on in the season, just because they're going to be having to be figuring out some things on offense as well. And that's not going to be an easy game. I think it's been a little bit since South Carolina's won in Columbia, Missouri against the Tigers, but it's a really interesting matchup in this one.
Yeah, you talk about the defense. Tristan Newsome, Josiah Trotter, defensive those are linebackers. Defensive tackle Christian McClellan is very good. Defense on paper is one of the best in the SEC, and I do think they'll lean on that. You go back to last year, Alex, I feel like, that was actually the second half. I had to leave to go to my brother-in-law and now my sister-in-law's engagement party, wedding engagement party.
That was a bad second half to miss.
Well, no, I didn't miss it. I got to watch it, but
not in person for it.
Yeah, not in person for it. And let's just say that I hate going to my in-laws because, covering Gamecock sports, like terrible track record. Whether they come to my house, whether I go to their house, terrible, terrible track record. To the point where my wife actually sent me upstairs one day because I was getting too frustrated at my family. But long story short, you look back to last year, South Carolina was pretty much in control in the first half. The second half got kind of dicey, and obviously it got extremely dicey with Luther Burden's miraculous catch, running into the end zone to give Missouri the lead. And then what happened? Well, Dale Von Campbell had a 50-yard catch and run, and then Rocket Sanders caused an earthquake in Columbia. So Gamecocks escaped. I thought they played better overall than the final score indicated, and it's going to be a big matchup.
And I'm kind of looking ahead to their schedule too. Like, South Carolina's going to be their first big test. Like they got Central Arkansas, Kansas, and Louisiana Lafayette all at home before South Carolina comes to town on what's the date? September 20th, like that. That's going to kind of be their first test. So, maybe they do have those first three games kind of figure out some things offensively. So we'll see.
It's one of those things I think a lot of Gamecock fans would like to see the Gamecocks be able to do. And they see Missouri and Kentucky do it every year where, the first 5 of 6 games, they're already 5-0 and, or maybe 6 games, 5-1 with 1 win left to get to bowl eligibility. But, South Carolina has to go play the Virginia Techs, the North Carolinas of the world. That's just but it makes a lot of money for South Carolina too. And you should be able to contend and beat those teams.
7.5. What do they do?
Over under 7.5. Oh man. They've had so many 9 and 10 win seasons over the past couple of years, and I didn't think they would.
I'll read you their schedule real quick. So you had those 4. Then you have UMass after South Carolina. Alabama comes to Columbia, Missouri. At Auburn, at Vanderbilt, home against A&M, home against Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas.
I'm going to go over 8.5. I counted.
But yeah, I go over too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I counted 4 definite wins. And then you have Arkansas, you have Vanderbilt, and you have Mississippi State as those kind of swing games to get you over. And then you pull an upset. And, I mean, that's why I was saying, even if it was 7.5, maybe with another non-win team, this is going to be Eli Drinkwitz's biggest test, I think, of his career.
Yeah, there's not to get too much into Missouri here to dive in, but just from their schedule, you look at like Auburn's a team that don't think we see what their roster is, but we don't know how much, what are they going to do this year. Mississippi State, they're coming off of, having to pretty much rebuild their Oklahoma. I don't think we know too much about. We know what they did in the offseason. And Arkansas, it's a big year for them too. So not to jump too much into Missouri, but that's interesting.
No, I love it. That's cool.
Just looking at their schedule, it's just I would, if I was going to bet, I'd take the over on that too.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn was the other team I had on my other finger. I had 4 definites and I had 4 maybes, should be's.
looking at the rest of their schedule, it makes that South Carolina game pretty huge, I think, for both teams, really.
I think it's the biggest game of the season South Carolina's biggest game of the season for Virginia Tech. Just you gotta win that one.
Yeah.
But then after that, you should feel pretty confident against South Carolina State. You should feel pretty confident at home against Vanderbilt at night. And then you have your true road test in Missouri, where Missouri has been a place of nightmares for South Carolina. And Eli Drinkowitz specifically has been like the Riddler from Batman. He always seems to perplex whatever Gamecock coach it is. So we'll see. This game is a flex window, Alex. So it's either going to be between 3:30 and 4:30 or 6 and 8 p.m. So
they got a lot of those on the schedule this year so far.
They do. And look, it just means if you have a wedding to go to that Saturday, you're going to have to RSVP, can't make it, send a very nice gift. And then next time you see that couple, buy their round of drinks at the bar. But you're going to RSVP, you can't make it. And if you have children, blame it on the children. That's always easy. But so, Alex, I'll go first on this prediction as well. Gosh, I think it's going to be a pretty big test for the Gamecocks. I think the Gamecocks win. By how many points? It could be 1, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 7, it could be 13. I don't think it's going to be by 2 touchdowns.
If South Carolina's going to win, I feel like it's going to be like a field goal game or something like that. And it's so hard to make a prediction right now just because we don't know. And we'll have a better idea after those kind of first few weeks of the season. But right now, I'd go a field goal game.
Yeah, I was going to say we might as well do this, Alex. It's so early, but let's go back to Vanderbilt really quick. Let's predict the spread. I'm going to say Gamecocks minus 13.5. I think that's probably a good number. Maybe it gets bet down to 12.5. It all depends on the Virginia Tech game for both teams. But Alex, thoughts on just the Vandy point spread?
Yeah, that's kind of the range I'd go to. I don't think it'll get to 14 just because of what we talked about with Vanderbilt, how they play and kind of control the ball. They really want to make you into those close games. And then for Missouri, probably Missouri a field goal favorite. I would think, again, it kind of just bases on – it's so hard to do that just because we don't know what the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season – 3 weeks of the season are going to look like. But just kind of seeing how the odds kind of happen, and I could see it being – and basically giving, Missouri 3 points for home field, I could see it being almost like a push game, but Missouri being a 3-point favorite.
Yeah, I'm going to call it right now, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in. The Vanderbilt game, Gamecocks minus 10.5. I think that's what it is at kickoff. Yep. And the Missouri game, I think it's Missouri minus 2.5. That's where I'm going. I think that seems right. All right, Alex, to close out this show, I think this is fun. I'm not a big ranking season guy, but to close out a show 5 minutes, we're not going to spend 45 minutes debating the top 10 SEC quarterbacks. I don't think anyone cares for that. Yeah. You can go to any message board in the world, and if you're a member of 247 Sports, you get to read all the message boards. You don't get to post on all of them, but you get to read them all at least. So, Alex, do you want to go first on your top 10 SEC quarterbacks, or do you want me to? Or
what if we do 1 and 1?
All right, let's do 1 and 1. All right, you go first.
Sellers, number 1.
Okay, we agree there. I think we're going to agree on number 2 as well.
Nussmeier.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that.
Okay.
Really, for me, it's pick your poison. I think Lenore Sellers does more all around from a running aspect, passing aspect. I think, from a total yard standpoint, I think that Sellers is probably going to be the better game breaker. But from an overall total yardage, total touchdowns, I think Nussmeier is going to get them. But I don't think you can go wrong. And just for the record, Alex, while we're talking about this, I broke this down as if this was I'm the GM of a team and I'm drafting players for this season only. So I'm not projecting anything. I don't know how you did it, but So Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier 1 and 2 for us.
Yeah, I think obviously, Lenore's is going to have the advantage on the ground and pretty Nussmeier is your typical just kind of stay in the pocket passer. Nussmeier, he's a guy that has a ton of experience too, but I think you kind of just lean Lenore Sellers just because of what he can do on the ground, combined with I think he's you hear some of what people talk about Lenore Sellers, how he needs to continue passing or throwing or continue with his arm, and he does. Like he does need to continue to improve there, but I think he's better there than some people give him credit for too.
Yeah, and it's basically year 2 of both of these quarterbacks taking starter reps in practice and starter reps in games. So I don't even go wrong with either of them, but I do think Sellers is a better overall package. I'm going to go next. I'm going to give you my next 2, Alex, and then you can give your next 2. Okay. So I put Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier as the elite quarterbacks. I kind of tiered this out. And then I have chance to join the elite club. I have John Mateer at Oklahoma and Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. So that's my 3 and 4, which I think might raise some eyebrows.
So my 3 and 4 were DJ Lagway and John Mateer.
Okay. So we agreed on
a little bit higher on DJ Lagway and not as high on Pavia compared to your rankings.
Yeah, and I just think Pavia's been there, done it.
That's fair.
With DJ Lagway, I saw flashes, but I do not see all the hype in him. And I'm sure that's going to get cut up, edited, all of that kind of thing. And then the next thing I'm going to say is going to be the next cut and edit. But he didn't play the whole season. And if you look at it from a production standpoint, him and Arch Manning were pretty close in production last year. Now, was Arch Manning probably playing in lower leverage situations? Yeah. But, so, I mean, I have Diego Pavia there. So 3 and 4. I have Sellers, Nussmeier, Mateer, and Pavia is my 1 through 4. Alex has Sellers, Nussmeier, Mateer, and DJ Lagway. My next little section here, Alex, is a couple of them. So I'm going to throw it out and then just let you go. But this is in order for me, though. So I called this my tier hyped, but I'm going to wait and see. And it's Arch Manning at Texas, DJ Lagway at Florida, Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, Ty Simpson at Alabama, and Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. I could see these guys jumping up to 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the SEC. Arch Manning, I still got to see more. DJ Lagway, I got to see more. Marcel Reed, I see the electricity, but I got to see more. Ty Simpson, I haven't seen crap. And Austin Simmons, I haven't seen crap. So hype.
Yeah, a lot of these rankings for me too were like, what have you done in the past? Like, I originally had, so in my 5 spot, I have Diego Pavia. Like I originally had Arch Manning there, but I'm like, I've seen, I don't know if I can justify putting Arch Manning over Diego because Diego has a whole lot more game tape or experience out there. Like, can Arch Manning end up being in that top 3 quarterbacks this year in the SEC? I think he's got a chance for it. But I think just right now, I'd have to go with Pavia and Arch in that 5 and 6 spot. And this is where I think in the rankings right now, the top 2 I think you have a pretty good idea of who they are. Then you get to 3 and 4, you have a decent chance. And then from here on, it's kind of hard to rank just because I think there's so many different. You can make a case for every one of them.
Well, it's why when I do these rankings, I try and make some tiers and I try and give a title for my tier. Yeah. Because I can't split the hairs between Arch Manning and DJ Lagway right now. I just can't. I'm going to take Arch Manning because I think he has the pedigree and he has better supporting cast than DJ Lagway. Marcel Reed, we all saw what he did at Texas A&M last year in a couple of games and even in the bowl game a year ago. Ty Simpson, 5-star kid, Alex. I mean, at Alabama, should have all the weapons in place. He seems to fit Kalen DeBoer's offense to a T. And then Austin Simmons, he's got Lane Kiffin. And, Austin Simmons to me is, he's like the model on the cover of GQ magazine. He should be perfect. Is he going to be perfect with Lane Kiffin? I don't know yet.
So, a lot of what I think about with Austin Simmons is what he was able to do in that Georgia game when Jackson Dart went down. He came in and he did pretty well in that game. And it's just another one. Still need to see more from him. But, Lane Kiffin's kind of the quarterback whisperer. It seems like he's had a lot of good quarterbacks working or go with him. And so really interested to see him, especially because you think about Ole Miss, they got kind of what we talk about with Missouri. They got a few key pieces to replace on that offense.
Yeah, the last guy in my top – or all those guys in your top 10, Alex, really quick. Did you have a specific ranking of them you want to talk about?
Say the names again to make sure I did.
Okay, so we have our top 5 are essentially the same. Yeah. So I have Arch Manning at 5 – or at 5, you have him you have DJ Lagway at 4. So it's Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, Marcel Reed, Ty Simpson, and Austin Simmons. Would you change up that order?
So I also included Taylor Green at Arkansas, who I think actually is pretty good, and Jackson Arnold. I put him. He's in my 10. I had him at number 10. From after my top 4, I had Pavi at 5, Arch Manning, Marcel Reed, Austin Simmons, Taylor Green, Jackson Arnold.
Okay. So the one person we're differing on in the top 10 is I have Ty Simpson and you have Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where you've seen more from Taylor Green, or you've seen a little bit from Jackson. I think Auburn's season, a lot of it kind of comes down to the play of Jackson Arnold. Like, I think at Oklahoma, I think it's going to be good for him to get a fresh start at Auburn. Like, we talk about supporting cast. Like, he's going to have a really good supporting cast at Auburn from a wide receiver standpoint. Like, he's got Eric Singleton, Cam Coleman, like all those guys. He's going to have a really good wide receiver core. Like, that's why I could probably put him a little bit higher too, but still kind of want to see him prove it after that. What he was able to do last year. It can be kind of hard to judge what happened at Oklahoma just because their season just snowballed and they had all those injuries at wide receiver. Like, their top 4 guys were injured for most of the year. So he's really kind of a quarterback that I'm interested to see the most.
Yeah, and like he was in a tier by himself for me at number 10, and I literally have written here could be top 6 based on system fit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see him jump up. So the guys outside of the top 10 we haven't talked about: Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. Look, familiar name for Gamecock fans. Once committed to South Carolina, it seems like he's going to be a game manager, and that might be enough at Georgia. But from a pure talent standpoint and carrying a team, I don't know if Gunnar can do it. Joey Aguilar at Tennessee, obviously not the quarterback Tennessee expected to have starting this year, so going to have to see some stuff there. I mean, Alex does like Taylor Green a little bit more than me. He was right outside my top 10. Bo Pabrilla from Missouri. One of us probably pronounced that right. One of us pronounced it wrong. Probably Alex pronounced it right. Then you have Zach Calzada at Kentucky and Blake Shapen at Mississippi State. So those are the quarterbacks, Alex. And I think there is a clear top 2, a clear top 6, clear top 8, a clear top 10, and then the rest.
Blake Shapen's another one that I mentioned to see. Like, he got hurt early on in Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He was their guy. I think he's pretty good. That's going to be another one where, what does he have around him to help him out there? Because they lost a few to transfer portal. Like, does he have enough to help him out? But I think he's a pretty good player. And I think the one too that a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing South Carolina get an early look at him is Zach Calzada, a guy that's in his 7th year of college, has been at Auburn, has been at Texas A&M, and had a pretty good, I think, 1 or 2 seasons at Incarnate Word in Texas, and now he's at Kentucky. Like, I don't know what to think. Like, I think the talent's there, but it could be another case of what is he going to have enough around him, and really kind of interested to see how he performs early on.
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm laughing because the other night I watched Tommy Boy, and I don't know if you've seen it, but Tommy Boy says a lot of guys go to college for 7 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, one of the interesting things is if you look at South Carolina's schedule this year, especially in that really SEC schedule, you don't play Arch Manning, you don't play DJ Lagway, you don't play Jackson Arnold, you don't play Gunnar Stockton, you don't play Joey Aguilar, you don't play Taylor Green. You do play Bo, you play Zach Calzada, and you don't play Blake Shapen. So you can kind of flip a coin. Is it good or bad for South Carolina based on the quarterbacks they're facing this upcoming year? But Alex, man, any parting shots? That's going to do it for this show.
That was a loaded show. We got a lot there. I mean, we talked a lot of football, but just a few kind of basketball points. The NBA Summer League's going on. Colin Murray Bowles has played in 2 games, had pretty good start through 2 games. AJ Lawson's been really good so far, averaging, I think, in the 20 or so or figures or so, and he's shooting like 56% from the field and from 3. Like, and then GG Jackson's having another good summer league. So it's something just to keep an eye on here for the next few weeks of summer league. But football, kind of enter that Tolkien season now. Preseason camp will start probably, I'd imagine, beginning of August, maybe the August 1st, something around there. But inching closer and closer.
We are, man. We really are. One thing I'm going to advise you, I was going to say on the top of the show, but we just had other things to talk about. So my wife and I did a 5K, our first 5K ever, this past weekend, Harbison State Park. I was the one that wanted to do it, and I regretted the decision every day since. My wife went out and trained. I literally did couch to 5K, like couch the day before to 5K.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to do one, don't do a trail run up and down hills with roots. I'm still recovering, but a lot of fun this past weekend. Hope you had a good weekend too.
Yeah, I can say I did not do the 5K in, so hope you're feeling better.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to say we appreciate everyone that tuned in tonight, everyone that's going to watch this later, listen to this later. When you hang out with us, you give us your time, and that's the most valuable thing you have, and we don't take it for granted. We're very lucky to be able to do what we do and to have loyal supporters like y'all. It just means the world to us. So Alex has his Twitter on there. I didn't put mine on tonight. Mine's Late Night Gamecock. You can reach out to us if you have any questions, anything you'd like to see on the show. And then on thebigspur.com, if you're a member, you can obviously DM us, and we're happy to talk shop with you, answer any questions there. If you want to ask questions for the show, hopefully we'll do a Q&A episode at some point. But appreciate all of you. We hope you have a great rest of the week. And let's see if the Gamecocks get some good news tomorrow with Wingo and on Friday with Landon Duckworth. For myself and Alex, we're signing off. Have a good one, y'all.